Why shouldn't the people that are buying these weapons be well trained? Why shouldn't there be something tied to mental health and the medication they're taking? Why shouldn't that be okay for us to know that? What's wrong with knowing that? And what's wrong with us increasing training? When I get a car that I use, I got to get a permit and I got to get a license, right? I mean, that's across the board. And a car is a weapon. The car is believe me, there's some drivers in America who shouldn't be driving any cars right now, right? So why not focus on training? And is there anybody that's buying guns that shouldn't have access to those guns? By the way, FYI, keep in mind, I know that no matter what we do, we're not going to get to 0% where none of this stuff's going to be happening. But why not focus on getting people trained more, Tom?
You build a great point. My daughter just got her driver's license. She had to certify she's not under medication. She has to take a vision test. And so it says on your driver's license, corrected. So if she's pulled over and she doesn't have glasses, no, her eyesight's fine. But if she had glasses and she's pulled over not wearing her glasses, the cop will say, hey, you've got corrected vision. Why aren't you wearing your glasses? So they do that. And by the way, it's a very elaborate check. I've seen it with my own eyes here in Florida. You're 76 years old and you go to renew your driver's license. You have to go in there and you have to pass a vision check. So look, we require people to go to DMV, bring a registration in, you sold your truck to me, we fill it out, and I get it. Okay. And we have situations where I have to go to driver's ed, and my first time I have to take a driver's test, don't I? To get my driver's license.
Well, so why not do that?
So why not do this for Pat? I'm with you. Why not do it for guns?
So
hang on.
I think
you
my
have to
concern,
when you get your first weapon, you have to get a gun safety course. If you want to drive a school bus, you have to get a Class C driver's license to be trained so that you're capable of driving a bus. So why not do the same thing that your first weapon, your gun license, involves training? I'm with you 100% on point.
I think we might be on the same page on this. My concern is who gets to decide the criteria on that. And if it's the federal government, that's incredibly concerning. There was a boyfriend loophole in a recent red flag legislation that was being drafted. And what's to say, just hypothetical scenario, playing devil's advocate, what if you are really pissed off at your boyfriend and because he cheated on you, whatever it might be, and he owns a firearm, he owns an AR-15, and you go and tell the cops that he's a deranged person and he did all this stuff, and then they go and take the weapon away. There's a very fine line when it comes to what government's authority is on being able to decide who owns a firearm. Based on our Second Amendment, Americans all can. And so where does that play?
I don't interrupt you, but to make a point here, I want to make sure that I'm not wrong. In the red flag laws, they don't seize and take the weapon away from you forever, right? It's like having your car impounded. Hey, we're concerned here, so we're going to impound your gun, and there's a process to go get it back. Was there really a fight here? Were you really upset? Were you really a risk to people? And there's a process there. That's the point for the red flag. Now, I agree with what you say, because the people that are against background checks for all weapons, you don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have a list of everybody that owns every gun, right, and then they are slowly going to start classifying every gun as an assault weapon. This is an assault weapon. Suddenly a 12-gauge shotgun that's only used to shoot birds is now going to be an assault weapon, and Uncle Harry's going to lose his bird gun. They're just going to keep turning that knob down because their goal is to get the weapons away from you. That is the argument that comes from the other side.
Tyler, push back on what I'm saying.
Okay, first of all, I don't know where in the country you can legally buy a weapon without going through a concealed firearms course. Right?
What are you talking about in Texas? You want to talk about how long it took me?
Excuse me. There are 24 states now that allow constitutional carry, but you still cannot buy a weapon without going through a background check. You cannot buy a weapon if you're addicted to any drugs. You cannot buy a weapon if you have a felony. They do an extensive background check on you. And again, this isn't the problem. The problem is not the law-abiding citizen who's buying the weapon. Chicago, Cook County has the strictest gun laws in the country, and their shootings are skyrocketing. They have 30, 40, 50 people a week dying from shootings that are being shot, young kids, gang members, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it doesn't matter how strict the gun laws are. If you take the guns away, if somebody wants to do harm, they'll do harm, right? They'll create a bomb, go bomb a marathon. They'll drive a truck through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, or in France. 84 people died on Bastille Day. This was like 10 years ago in France. They'll drive a truck through the crowd. To Catalina's point, people are going to want to do harm. The problem is not the gun. It's the hedonism and the lack of, as you put it earlier, the lack of God within the country. People don't. They're lost. They have no purpose. They're angry. They're upset.
You're talking to a guy that loves America like you wouldn't believe. You're talking to a guy that was in the military who thinks, you know how many people I want to have guns in America? You know how many people I want to have guns in semi-automatics in America? How many do you think I want to have?
All of them.
I want 100%, but 100% trained is what I want. 100% trained is what I want. Let me read you a couple comments that we just got here on what I said. Some agree, some disagree. So John McGuire just gave $50. This is common factor amongst the shooters: lonely, delusional, complete lack of purpose or belonging. Is really hard is it really hard to help these kids? Let's stop trying to treat the symptom and go after the cause. Mentor and give these kids a purpose. Fine. This next person said,
agree.
Anna Bruner said, I'm an NRA instructor. And I totally agree with Pat on training. Everyone who owns a firearm should be trained. I've been teaching for 30 years. I feel this is the best solution. All I'm saying is go back and think about, Second Amendment. What is Second Amendment? It's not a privilege, right? Some guy commented saying it's not a privilege. Owning a car is a privilege. Owning a gun is constitutional right. You have the right to have this. Totally get it, right? But to me, even if you go back and think about back in the days where you were worried about somebody attacking you or even somebody invading, like government, somebody comes into your house and give me this, give me that, which happens all the time in a lot of different countries to make sure that doesn't happen in America. Well, how do you fight against that? You'll fight against that by knowing how to use these weapons. If you don't know how to use these weapons and you just buy a gun to buy a gun, that doesn't mean you know what you're doing. So to train them is the solution. If I, again, go back to policies, if I want my state to be protected, I want to make my guys more trained. But at the same time, I don't want somebody who is taking certain mental health medication to have access to weapons because they're going through something. That is a concern that we ought to think about that. Okay, there is a challenge with that. Some people fight back on that, and I totally understand that argument. But I'm trying to go to the point of what's wrong with having every single person that owns a gun be trained? What's wrong with that?
Well,
nothing.
You talk to the people in the gun community. What's the first thing they tell you to do? Train,
gun
drill,
safety.
dry fire.
Fully.
Yeah.
That's all they tell you to, because it doesn't matter if you own a weapon just because you magically
what if
bought a 9mm.
conservatives took that position, though? What if conservatives took that position? What if conservatives? No. What if conservatives said, "Here's what we want to do. Let's create training. Let's make our guys better." By the way, that's another opportunity for conservatives to get a new audience.
There are a lot of groups, nonprofits that are going to inner cities like Chicago and Baltimore, and they're training the communities, the youth of the communities on proper gun safety, which I think is a really interesting point. But I love this quote. It was from DriveFireTrainingCards.com. Guns are designed to project kinetic force at a distance. What you do with them is a reflection of your intent, not the intent of the gun. So we can train a million people. I fully get
what you're saying with that. I get what you're saying with that, and I agree. I don't think this is a one-point solution. I think it's 10-point solution. It's not only one thing that's going to fix it all. Mm-hmm. The 1 out of 10 that I think is being trained. If you're trained a little bit more, I feel better about it. If you're not.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.